You might think you have seen it all when it comes to bad job interviews. But nothing can prepare you for the absolute madness of these 61 candidates who ruined their chances in seconds. We are talking about people who complained that the office air was too cold or that the carpet smell was gross. Some even refused to work because the wall color blocked their creativity chakra. These are the most entitled and hilarious complaints ever recorded in corporate history. Get ready to laugh because you are about to witness the dumbest ways to stay unemployed. 1. A young man walked into the interview room and sat down heavily. He immediately grimaced and started shifting his weight around like he was sitting on a bed of nails. The hiring manager asked him if he was okay. The applicant sighed loud enough to be heard in the hallway. He looked the manager in the eye and said this standard office chair was hurting his back. He then seriously asked if they had any ergonomic gaming chairs available instead. The manager stared at him in silence. He explained that this was an accounting firm and not a Twitch stream setup. The young man stood up and said his lumbar support was more important than the job. 2. A woman arrived for her interview wearing a heavy winter coat even though it was mid-July. She walked into the conference room and started shivering dramatically before the interview even began. The interviewer asked if she wanted to take her coat off. She wrapped her arms around herself and said it was absolutely freezing in there. She claimed she could not focus on questions when the temperature was below 74 degrees. The interviewer wiped sweat from his forehead because the AC was actually broken. She demanded they turn up the heat immediately or she would leave. The manager opened the door and told her to go warm up outside. 3. A stylish woman walked in wearing oversized sunglasses. She sat down and looked up at the ceiling lights with deep disgust. She told the hiring manager that the fluorescent lighting was terrible for her complexion. She seriously asked if they could install dimmer switches or let her work by candlelight. The manager explained that this was a hospital and they needed to see what they were doing. The woman refused to take off her sunglasses and said she could not work under such harsh conditions. The manager simply pointed to the door. She left claiming her pores were already clogged by the bad vibes and cheap bulbs. 4. A young man entered the room and immediately pinched his nose shut tight. He breathed loudly through his mouth while shaking the manager's hand. He looked around the room and said the office smelled like old paper. He called the scent gross and asked if they could spray lavender mist everywhere before he started. The interviewer was confused because they were literally inside a public library. The man said he preferred the smell of fresh rain or vanilla bean. The librarian stared at him in silence. He continued to hold his nose until he turned blue. The interview ended when he ran out for fresh air. 5. A spiritual woman walked into the marketing agency and gasped in horror. She spun around in a circle looking at the walls. She told the creative director that she could not work in a room painted gray. She claimed the color gray blocked her creativity chakra and ruined her aura. She demanded to know if she could repaint her cubicle neon orange on her first day. The director said the landlord would not allow that. She put her hands over her eyes to block out the dull color. She said her spirit guides advised her to leave immediately. The director happily opened the door for her. 6. An older man arrived at the lobby breathing heavily. He told the receptionist he refused to take elevators because they were metal death traps. The hiring manager came down to meet him since the office was on the 10th floor. The man asked if the office was on the first floor because he would not do stairs either. The manager looked at him with total confusion. The man said he needed a job where he could teleport to his desk. The manager explained they did not have that technology yet. The man got angry and said he would find a company that respected his fear of vertical movement. 7. A recent college graduate walked through the open office plan during her tour. She stopped abruptly in front of an empty desk. She pointed a manicured finger at the window and frowned. She told the recruiter that the desk faced a brick wall and she needed a view of the skyline. The recruiter explained that the corner offices were reserved for executives. The girl crossed her arms and refused to move. She said she needed natural light to post aesthetic photos of her workday. The recruiter told her she could look at the brick wall or look for another job. She chose to leave. 8. A nervous man sat in the interview chair and kept twitching his left eye. He asked the manager what that terrible clicking sound was coming from the next room. The manager explained it was just the other employees typing on their keyboards. The man covered his ears and said the typing sound was really annoying. He asked if everyone could switch to touchscreens or just write with pens. The manager laughed, thinking it was a joke. The man was dead serious and said he had sensitive ears. The interview ended when the manager started typing notes and the man screamed in frustration. 9. A middle-aged woman returned from the restroom looking absolutely horrified. She marched back into the interview room and slammed her purse on the table. She looked the HR director in the eye and said she had checked the supplies. She revealed that the toilet paper was only 1 ply and that was a deal breaker. She said her standards were too high for cheap paper products. The HR director was speechless at this feedback. The woman said she refused to work for a company that did not pamper its employees. She stormed out before they could even ask about her resume. 10. A burly man walked into the office wearing a cowboy hat and muddy boots. He did not even sit down before starting his complaint. He told the hiring manager that he had inspected the parking lot outside. He said the spaces were way too narrow for his lifted monster truck. He demanded a reserved double spot right next to the front door. The manager explained that parking was standard size for normal cars. The man spit on the floor and said he would not risk scratching his paint. He turned around and walked out to find a job with bigger asphalt. 11. A young graphic designer sat down at the test station. She stared at the computer monitor like it was an alien artifact. She turned to the IT manager and said she literally did not know how to use a Windows computer. She claimed she only did Mac because she had artistic standards. The manager explained the whole company used PCs for compatibility. She poked the mouse with one finger and asked where the command key was. She said she could not work under these primitive conditions. The manager told her to leave. She walked out saying she was allergic to Bill Gates and his ugly interface. 12. A teenager in a hoodie pulled out his phone during the interview. He frowned deeply while looking at his screen. He told the hiring manager that he checked the guest Wi-Fi speed. He said it was way too slow for streaming his music while he worked. The manager explained that the internet was for business emails and cloud access. The teen laughed and said he could not function without his high-definition playlists. He asked if they could upgrade to fiber optics just for him. The manager pointed to the door. The boy left saying he could not survive on such laggy bandwidth. 13. An older woman sat down and eyed the desk phone suspiciously. She pushed it to the far edge of the table with a pen. She told the supervisor that she did not put cell phones or desk phones up to her ear. She claimed it was because of the dangerous radiation waves. She asked if she could communicate exclusively through written notes or smoke signals. The supervisor explained that this was a call center job. The woman gasped and covered her head with a scarf. She ran out of the room screaming that the 5G waves were already melting her brain. 14. A confident man in a sharp suit leaned back in his chair. The interviewer asked about his proficiency with spreadsheets. The man scoffed and said he refused to learn Excel. He asked if there was not an AI that did that now. He claimed that manual data entry was beneath his intellect. The interviewer explained that the job required daily financial reporting. The man rolled his eyes and said he was an idea guy, not a number cruncher. He suggested they hire a robot for the math. The interviewer ended the meeting. The man left to find a job that required 0 actual skills. 15. A young woman stopped the security guard at the entrance. She looked at the sample ID badge hanging on his lanyard. She told the HR rep that she was not wearing an ID badge unless she could retake the photo. She demanded to use a beauty filter or a ring light for the picture. The rep explained it was just for building security and not Instagram. The woman said she had a personal brand to maintain. She refused to look ugly on plastic. The rep told her the job was not a modeling gig. She walked away saying she would not be caught dead without smoothing effects. 16. A man with perfectly styled gelled hair walked into the sales office. He saw the headsets on the desks and stopped cold. He told the sales manager that headsets messed up his hair volume. He demanded a speakerphone so his pompadour would remain untouched. The manager explained that 20 people worked in the same room. The man said his hair took 2 hours to style every morning. He refused to crush his art for a cold call. The manager told him to try a barber shop instead. The man left while checking his reflection in the window to ensure his hair was still perfect. 17. An anxious woman stood as far away from the office printer as possible. She covered her mouth with a handkerchief. She told the office manager that she was scared of toner dust. She said she did not touch printers because the black powder was toxic. The manager explained that part of the job was printing shipping labels. The woman shook her head violent and backed away. She said she would only work if someone else handled the paper. The manager said they needed a shipping clerk, not a supervisor. The woman fled the room before the printer could sense her fear and attack her lungs. 18. A heavy-set man interrupted the first question of the interview. He rubbed his stomach and groaned loudly. He told the recruiter that he had not eaten since breakfast. He asked if they had a vending machine because he was getting hangry. The recruiter tried to continue, but the man slammed his hand on the table. He said he could not answer questions on an empty stomach. He demanded a snack bar or a bag of chips immediately. The recruiter offered him a glass of water. The man stood up and said he was going to lunch instead of working. He left to find a burger. 19. A fitness enthusiast walked in carrying a massive gallon jug. He placed it on the desk with a heavy thud. He told the hiring manager that he only drank alkaline water. He asked if the office provided that specific brand or just tap water. The manager said they had a filtered water cooler in the kitchen. The man looked disgusted and said tap water was poison for his temple. He asked for a stipend to import his special hydration. The manager said they provided coffee and water only. The man picked up his jug and left. He said he could not work in a dehydrated environment. 20. A tired-looking woman yawned widely right in the middle of her sentence. She rubbed her eyes and looked at the clock on the wall. She told the supervisor that she took a 45-minute power nap at 2 in the afternoon. She said that would not be a problem, right? The supervisor stared at her in disbelief. He explained that sleeping on the job was generally frowned upon. The woman said she needed her beauty rest to function. She asked if there was a couch in the break room. The supervisor showed her the exit. She left to go find a bed instead of a career. 21. A man walked into the corporate law firm wearing a t-shirt and sweatpants. The hiring partner stared at his attire in shock. The man explained that he did not believe in wearing ties or suits. He claimed that tight collars restricted blood flow to the brain and made people stupid. He said he needed maximum circulation to win cases. The partner explained that courtrooms required formal dress codes. The man laughed and said he would not sacrifice his IQ for fashion. He offered to wear a clip-on if forced. The partner pointed to the elevator. The man left saying he was too smart for this firm. 22. A woman sat down for her interview and immediately kicked off her expensive heels. She sighed with relief and wiggled her toes on the carpet. She told the hiring manager that she had very sensitive feet. She said she usually worked in just her socks or bare feet to stay grounded. The manager looked at her feet under the table with concern. He explained that this was a construction site office with safety regulations. The woman said shoes were prisons for her soles. She asked if she could wear fuzzy slippers instead. The manager ended the interview. She left barefoot carrying her shoes in her hand. 23. A young woman pulled out a thick binder full of star charts. She flipped through the pages frantically while the interviewer waited. She looked up with a serious expression and shook her head. She told the interviewer she had looked up the CEO's birthday online. She said their zodiac signs were completely incompatible, and it would cause cosmic disaster. She claimed as a Scorpio she could not report to a Leo without emotional damage. The interviewer was speechless. The woman asked if the CEO could be replaced by a Pisces. The interviewer showed her out. She left saying the planets had warned her about this place. 24. A nervous man sat in the chair and started sweating profusely. The hiring manager asked him to describe a time he overcame a challenge. The man froze and stared at the wall for a full minute. He finally spoke up and said he could not answer questions on the spot. He asked if the manager could email him the list of questions instead. He claimed he needed 3 business days to draft the perfect replies. The manager explained that an interview was a conversation. The man shook his head. He said live talking was too much pressure. He left the room to go check his inbox. 25. A woman in sunglasses looked at the map on the wall. She asked the recruiter which direction the highway traffic flowed in the morning. The recruiter said most people drove west to get to the office. The woman immediately stood up and grabbed her purse. She said she hated driving west in the morning because the sun got in her eyes. She claimed it caused her premature wrinkles and road rage. She asked if they could move the building to the other side of town. The recruiter said no. The woman left saying she only worked jobs that required driving north or south. 26. A young man with messy hair leaned across the desk eagerly. He asked when the first payday would be. The HR manager explained that they paid every 2 weeks on Fridays. The man slammed his fist on the table in frustration. He said he could not wait 2 weeks for a paycheck. He demanded daily payouts in cash at the end of every shift. He claimed he had bills that were due yesterday. The manager explained that payroll did not work that way. The man said he was not a volunteer. He walked out saying he would go work for a lemonade stand instead. 27. A secretive man lowered his voice to a whisper. He leaned in close to the hiring manager. He said he did not want to fill out any W-4 tax forms. He told the manager he preferred to be paid under the table to avoid the IRS. He winked and said it would be their little secret. The manager stared at him in shock. He explained that tax evasion was a federal crime. The man laughed nervously and said he was just testing their integrity. The manager did not believe him. Security escorted the man out before he could implicate them in a felony. 28. A cheerful woman brought a suitcase into the interview room. She told the surprised manager that she was ready to start right away. But then she dropped a bombshell. She said she had a non-refundable trip to Bali booked for next week. She informed him that she would need 14 days off immediately after being hired. The manager explained that vacation time accrued after 6 months. The woman pouted and said she needed to find herself on a beach. She asked if she could work remotely from a tiki bar. The manager said no. She left to catch her flight to unemployment. 29. A pessimistic man sat down and sighed deeply. He looked at the contract and frowned. He asked the HR director a very strange question. He wanted to know if he would get a severance package after the first month if things did not work out. He said he liked to plan for failure in advance. The director was confused by his lack of confidence. The man explained he usually got fired quickly. He wanted to make sure he had a golden parachute. The director closed the folder. He told the man they were looking for long-term employees only. The man left to find an easier payout. 30. A hungry-looking guy rubbed his hands together greedily. He asked the interviewer about the benefits package. He specifically wanted to know if he would get a company credit card for his daily lunch. He said he had expensive taste and loved sushi. The interviewer explained that expense accounts were for client meetings only. The guy looked disappointed and offended. He asked how he was supposed to afford gourmet food on a junior salary. He claimed that feeding him was an investment in the company's future. The interviewer disagreed. The guy left to find a job that sponsored his lobster habit. 31. A bohemian woman pushed the heavy benefits binder across the table with a laugh. She looked at the HR representative and said she did not need health insurance at all. She claimed she treated everything from headaches to broken bones with essential oils. The representative tried to explain that major surgery required actual medicine. The woman shook her head and pulled a small bottle of lavender out of her pocket. She said Big Pharma was a scam, and she only trusted nature. She asked if she could get the insurance money added to her paycheck instead. The rep said that was illegal. She left saying her immune system was too strong for corporate policies. 32. A young man with dark circles under his eyes looked at the job schedule with pure horror. He asked the manager if the 9 in the morning start time was a typo. He seriously explained that 9 was way too early for him to function as a human being. He claimed his brain did not actually turn on until 11 o'clock. He asked if he could just come in at noon and stay later to make up the time. The manager explained the office closed at 5. The man yawned loudly and rubbed his face. He said he could not commit to such a brutal morning routine. He walked out to go back to bed. 33. A busy mother sat on the edge of her seat checking her watch constantly. She interrupted the interviewer to set some ground rules immediately. She stated firmly that she had to leave at 4 o'clock sharp every single day. She explained that she needed to beat the rush hour traffic or she would lose her mind. The interviewer noted that the shift ended at 5:30. The woman shook her head and said that did not work for her schedule. She claimed sitting in traffic was against her religion. She asked if she could skip the lunch break to leave early. The interviewer said no. She gathered her things and left to beat the afternoon rush. 34. A relaxed man in a Hawaiian shirt leaned back with his hands behind his head. He told the hiring manager that he had a strict boundary regarding his personal time. He said he did not check emails on weekends under any circumstances. Then he added that his weekend actually started on Fridays after 2 in the afternoon. The manager looked confused because this was a full-time position. The man explained that his mental health required a 3-day weekend every week. He asked if the company respected his need for leisure. The manager said they needed workers on Fridays. The man laughed and walked out, saying they were too uptight for his chill vibe. 35. A sturdy-looking guy applied for a warehouse position. He watched the other workers moving crates and frowned. He told the foreman that he did not lift boxes of any kind. He claimed he had a bad back that flared up periodically. The foreman asked if he had a doctor's note or a medical condition. The man said his back only hurt when he didn't feel like working. He admitted that he was physically fine but mentally allergic to heavy lifting. He asked if he could just supervise the other guys instead. The foreman pointed to the gate. The man walked away briskly with absolutely no sign of back pain. 36. A young applicant looked at the thick employee handbook on the desk with fear. He pushed it away like it was a venomous snake. He told the trainer that he was not really a reader. He asked if he could just watch training videos on YouTube instead of reading the manual. He claimed that words on a page made him sleepy and confused. The trainer explained that the safety protocols were only available in text format. The applicant sighed and said he learned better through interpretive dance or TikToks. He refused to open the book. The trainer ended the session. The boy left, saying reading was for old people. 37. A fast-talking woman tapped her fingers on the desk impatiently. She told the accounting manager that she was a speed demon when it came to work. However, she had one major rule regarding her process. She said she hated double-checking her work because it felt like a total waste of time. She claimed her first instinct was always right and errors were just happy accidents. The manager explained that accounting required 0 mistakes. The woman rolled her eyes and said perfectionism was a toxic trait. She refused to use a calculator or review her spreadsheets. The manager showed her the door. She left without checking if she had all her belongings. 38. An older gentleman applied for the front desk receptionist role. He sat stiffly and looked very serious. He told the office manager that he could only do one thing at a time. He explicitly stated that if the phone rang while he was typing, he would not answer it. He explained that his brain could not handle 2 tasks simultaneously. The manager said the job required answering phones while logging visitors. The man said that sounded like chaos. He demanded a silent environment where he could focus on one single key at a time. The manager politely declined. The man left 1 foot at a time to ensure he didn't trip. 39. A creative-looking girl with colorful hair sat down for a data entry interview. She looked around the office and sighed. She told the supervisor that she had a problem with routine. She said she got bored doing the same thing 2 days in a row. She asked if she could switch job roles every morning to keep things fresh. One day, she wanted to be in finance and the next in marketing. The supervisor explained that she was hired for one specific job. The girl said that sounded like a prison sentence. She stood up and said her spirit was too free for consistency. She left to find a more chaotic career. 40. A grumpy man sat with his arms crossed tightly across his chest. He was applying for a customer service representative position. He looked at the hiring manager and said he hated dealing with the general public. He bluntly stated that people are stupid and he had no patience for them. He asked if he could tell customers they were wrong to their faces. The manager was shocked by his honesty. He explained that the job was literally helping people all day long. The man said he preferred a job where he could sit in a dark room alone. The manager agreed he should do that. The man left muttering about how annoying people were. 41. A rebellious young man leaned back in his chair with his feet on the table. He looked the department head in the eye and smirked. He told the interviewer that he had a serious problem with authority figures. He claimed that he worked much better when absolutely no one was watching him. He asked if he could have an office in the basement with no cameras. The manager explained that supervision was a normal part of employment. The man shook his head and said he was a free spirit. He refused to have a boss. The manager pointed to the exit. The man left saying he was too wild for a cubicle. 42. A man wearing a leather jacket sat in the corner of the room. He refused to shake the team leader's hand. He told the interviewer that he was a lone wolf. He stated clearly that he did not do group projects or team-building exercises. He claimed that other people only slowed down his genius. The interviewer explained that collaboration was one of their core values. The man laughed darkly and said he worked alone or not at all. He asked for a solitary task where he never had to speak. The interviewer ended the meeting. The man walked out into the sunset alone, just like in his own movie. 43. An older woman peered over her reading glasses at the hiring manager. She looked him up and down with obvious judgment. She told him straight up that she did not like taking orders from people younger than her. She asked how old he was. When he said 28, she actually scoffed. She claimed she had socks older than him. She said she could not respect a boss who still looked like a teenager. The manager politely explained that he owned the company. The woman refused to listen. She gathered her purse and left. She said she would only work for someone who remembered the moon landing. 44. A woman leaned across the desk and whispered loudly to the recruiter. She asked if there was any good tea or scandal in the office. She told the recruiter that her last office was way too quiet and boring. She admitted that she liked a workplace with a little bit of drama to keep things interesting. She asked if people cheated on their spouses here. The recruiter was horrified by her appetite for chaos. She explained they valued a peaceful environment. The woman looked disappointed and rolled her eyes. She left saying she could not work somewhere so dry. She needed toxic vibes to thrive. 45. A woman with a very sharp haircut stormed into the manager's office. She did not even say hello before starting her complaint. She pointed a finger at the lobby door. She told the hiring manager that the receptionist did not say good morning to her with enough enthusiasm. She claimed the lack of energy was disrespectful to her presence. She demanded that the receptionist be fired before she accepted the job. The manager was confused because the receptionist was known for being friendly. The woman said she required a standing ovation upon entry. The manager showed her out. He said they could not meet her royal standards. 46. A young man in a wrinkled t-shirt slumped deep into his chair. He played with a fidget spinner the entire time. He looked at the hiring manager and sighed loudly. He admitted that his mom was making him apply for this job. He bluntly stated that he did not actually want to be there at all. He asked the manager if he could just sign a paper saying he tried so his mom would get off his back. The manager was insulted by the waste of time. He told the boy to grow up. The boy left looking relieved that he did not get the job. 47. A nervous young woman kept checking her phone during the interview. She looked up at the male interviewer with concern. She told him that there was a slight problem with the team structure. She explained that her boyfriend got extremely jealous if she worked late with male coworkers. She asked if she could work exclusively in a female-only zone. The interviewer explained that was illegal and impossible. She said her boyfriend would track her location and cause a scene. The interviewer decided to avoid the drama. The woman left saying she had to go reassure her partner that the interviewer was ugly. 48. A woman walked in carrying a large designer handbag that was moving. She placed it on the desk and unzipped it to reveal a small trembling dog. She told the hiring manager that her dog had severe separation anxiety. She stated that she would need to bring him into the office every single day. The manager explained that the building had a strict no pets policy due to allergies. The woman gasped and covered the dog's ears. She said she could not leave her fur baby alone for 8 hours. She asked if the company paid for doggy daycare. The manager said no. She left to find a pet-friendly career. 49. A man applied for a delivery driver position with a logistics company. He seemed perfect until the final question about his driving record. He cleared his throat and looked down at his shoes. He told the fleet manager that he had a breathalyzer device installed in his personal car. He explained that he could not drive any company vehicles because they did not have the interlock device. The manager stared at him in silence. He asked how the man planned to deliver packages. The man asked if he could install his own device in the company van. The manager showed him the door. The interview ended immediately. 50. A disheveled man walked in carrying 2 large suitcases and a sleeping bag. He sat down and looked at the hiring manager with desperate eyes. He asked if he could start working immediately that very night. Then he dropped the bomb. He told the manager he was getting evicted from his apartment that day. He asked if he could sleep in the office for the first week until he got paid. He promised to be very quiet and hide under the desk. The manager explained that nobody lived at the office. The man begged for a closet space. The manager had to call security to escort him and his luggage out. 51. A young man walked into the interview room wearing dark sunglasses indoors. He winced in pain every time the hiring manager spoke. He leaned across the table and whispered loudly. He asked the manager if he could please speak quieter. He admitted he was super hungover from a wild party the night before. The manager was stunned by his honesty. The man asked for a greasy breakfast sandwich and some aspirin before they continued. He claimed the fluorescent lights were hurting his soul. The manager pointed to the door. The man shuffled out slowly, holding his head to keep it from exploding. 52. A frustrated woman sat in the lobby holding a clipboard and a pen. She stared at the application form with pure rage. She marched up to the front desk and threw the papers down. She demanded to know why she had to fill out an application. She screamed that they already had her resume, and this was redundant. She claimed copying her own history was beneath her. The receptionist explained it was standard procedure for legal records. The woman refused to write her name twice. She tore the paper in half. She walked out saying she would not work for a repetitive company. 53. A very serious man sat down and placed a briefcase on the table. The hiring manager started with a simple icebreaker question. He asked the man to tell him about himself. The man immediately narrowed his eyes and crossed his arms. He told the manager that was a very personal question. He refused to share private details with a stranger. The manager explained he just wanted to hear about his professional background. The man shook his head. He said he kept his work life and real life separate. He accused the manager of spying. The interview ended in total silence. 54. A sweaty woman burst into the office 20 minutes late for her appointment. She did not apologize or make an excuse. She pointed an accusatory finger at the hiring manager. She complained that the building was really hard to find from the street. She scolded the manager and said they should put up a much bigger sign. She claimed she drove past the entrance 3 times. The manager explained that there was a massive logo on the front door. The woman said she missed it because she was texting. She demanded they pay for her gas. The manager asked her to leave. 55. An impatient man checked his expensive watch repeatedly in the lobby. When called in, he did not shake hands. He looked at the hiring manager with deep disdain. He stated that he sat in the lobby for exactly 4 minutes past his time. He told the manager that he usually charged for his time. He pulled out a notepad and wrote an invoice for the wait. He claimed his time was more valuable than theirs. The manager laughed, thinking it was a joke. The man was serious. He demanded cash payment before answering questions. The manager told him to bill someone else. 56. A relaxed young man was doing great until the end of the interview. The manager handed him a form for a mandatory pre-employment drug screening. The man recoiled like the paper was on fire. He looked the manager in the eye and said he did not do drug tests. He claimed that testing his bodily fluids violated his spiritual freedom. He explained that his body was a temple that no one could audit. The manager explained it was company policy for safety. The man stood up. He said his chakras were too aligned for this negativity. He floated out of the room. 57. A meticulous woman sat down to sign a non-disclosure agreement. She wrote one letter and then stopped abruptly. She looked at the ballpoint pen with disgust. She asked the hiring manager if they had a better pen available. She complained that the one provided wrote scratchy and ruined her handwriting. She claimed she only used smooth gel pens imported from Japan. The manager said it was just a standard office pen. The woman threw the pen in the trash. She said she could not work for a company with such low-quality supplies. She left the room to find a better stationer. 58. A trendy graphic designer sat down and crossed his legs. He looked at the marketing director with a sneer. He frankly told the director that the company website was ugly. He said the design was so bad he almost did not apply. He claimed the color scheme offended his artistic eyes. The director explained they were actually in the middle of a rebrand. The designer laughed and said it was too late to save it. He asked if he could delete the whole site on day 1. The director ended the meeting. The designer left saying they deserved their bad font choices. 59. A confused young man stared blankly at the hiring manager. The manager asked him a specific question about the role requirements. The man scratched his head and shrugged. He admitted that the job description was way too long for him. He confessed that he did not read the whole thing because he got bored. He asked the manager to just summarize the job for him in 10 words or less. The manager looked at him in disbelief. He explained that reading was a fundamental part of the job. The man sighed. He said he preferred pictures. He walked out to find a shorter job. 60. A woman walked in and sat down with a sour expression. She did not waste any time with pleasantries. She told the hiring manager that the person who called to schedule this was annoying. She claimed the recruiter's voice was grating and too cheerful. She asked if she would have to listen to that voice every day. The manager stared at her in shock. He explained that the recruiter was his wife. The woman turned bright red. She tried to backtrack, but the damage was done. The manager pointed to the door. She left before she could insult any other family members. 61. A confident man seemed like the perfect candidate for the entire hour. He answered every question perfectly and charmed the manager. Then came the final background check question. The manager asked for his last employer's contact info. The man suddenly panicked and started sweating. He begged the manager please do not call his last boss. He whispered that his previous boss was currently suing him for theft. The manager stopped writing immediately. The man tried to explain it was a misunderstanding involving company funds. The manager closed the file. The man ran out before the police could be called. Well, there you have it. Proof that some people think the corporate world revolves around their chakras and sensitive feet. If this level of absolute entitlement made you laugh, smash that like button and subscribe to Ridiculous Complaints immediately. Don't forget to turn on notifications, or I might have to file a formal grievance against you. Now I want to hear from you. What is the absolute worst job interview story you have ever witnessed? Drop your craziest stories in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one.